Hello and welcome to Get Real Football Experts, our newest podcast edition. I'm Dave Cressa and I'm joined today by Louis DB. Louis, how are you?
Doing good.
Yeah, not much news today, but there's a few specific things. First, I want to talk about, I know you're pretty upset about this today, I'm pretty upset too. Your Thunder lost 2 in a row.
Yeah. All the criticism that I've had on Russell Westbrook, I take everything back. He's just not. I'm just starting to think that Durant's he's just starting to worry me on how much time he's got to play and how many points he's got to score just to keep up.
How many did he score?
36, and they still lost by 7. So basketball has been kind of. It's gonna be kind of a pain right now with the injuries, and now Blake Griffin's out for the year. So,
yeah.
And with May, football's kind of I like to call it the Meg month, quoting Family Guy. It's just not a month of many exciting things.
Except for like rookie minigames.
Yeah, so this is the month we'll be predicting our schedules. So just to keep something going, we'll be doing that in the next couple days. We're gonna stick to the draft though right now.
All right. So first, let's talk about some current news.
All right, yes.
Justin Blackmon suspended the first 4 games for substance abuse policy, violating that. We don't know what exactly drug it was, but suspended the first 4 games. Yeah,
substance and abuse. I was listening to the Ross Tucker podcast, and he thinks it's a street drug.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think, and I'm quoting Ross Tucker on this. This is exactly what he said, but as him. He probably has a problem because he had $11 million guaranteed in money that he might just blow away. He suspended 4 games. I mean, that's big for the Jaguars too, who are trying to rebuild. They got Cecil Shorts on the other side. They could have did some damage in the passing game, and this really hurts them.
Here, I'll pull up,
and fantasy wise too.
Well, I hate
Stay away from all.
I just don't like him fantasy wise. Here, I'll pull up the Jaguars' first 4 games and what he will be missing. But like what Ross Tucker was saying, I listened to that as well. He said that they have like something in his contract where if he does this kind of stuff, he doesn't get. They can take away some of his money. And
that's kind of like a guy. I'm going to just go off subject for a second. Tyrann Mathieu, another guy that's he pretty much denied the Cardinals contract because he wants guaranteed money. He would have a drug test weekly. So there's guys like this that are coming in the league that have good talent, but the off the field issues are just too big a risk sometimes. There shouldn't be things guaranteed with these kind of guys. And I think Blackmon's one of those guys that has tremendous upside, but it's just those off the field issues are really big and can really affect the Jaguars organization.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like Blackmon. I mean, that DUI last year.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, he had a DUI right after the draft. I mean, the minute you get drafted, that's the worst possible thing you could do. Right after you get drafted, so it's been a rough road already for Blackmon. But I mean, he had a productive year last year. I mean, not many. Last year was kind of a bad year for rookie receivers. I mean, rookie receivers don't usually produce all that much.
Well, the year before was amazing with AJ Green.
Well, yeah. I mean, but even before that, though, I mean, okay. So maybe not, because Calvin Johnson coming out of Georgia Tech was a pretty big impact player too. But last year wasn't a great draft for receivers. I mean, Michael Floyd wasn't really on the field that much either. No. And he has some character issues too, people are talking about. And then Kendall Wright was the leader in receptions on the Titans. But back to Blackmon. Yeah, so it's just a tough situation for him.
Yeah, so the games he will be missing is Week 1, home against the Chiefs. Week 2, in Oakland against the Raiders. Week 3, in Seattle, which is the hardest stadium to play in. And then Week 4, home against the division Colts.
Yeah, I don't think there's one win in that anyway, so I don't really think he makes that big of a difference.
The Jaguars just suck.
Yeah, they're not that great. They have a lot of holes on the offensive side. Pretty much the biggest position. They have one of the worst in the league. It's not all his fault. Like I said in the recent podcast, he's had 3 different head coaches, but Blaine Gabbert's production has not been up, and he needs his guys. This hurts Blaine Gabbert too. I mean, I wouldn't be happy if I was Blaine Gabbert. He needs as much help as he can get, and with Maurice Jones-Drew, he's not fully healthy yet. I mean, he's really going to be relying on Cecil Shorts and Mercedes Lewis to get any production. Pretty much look to that defense to try to impact it somewhat.
Yeah, I don't really like the Jags this year.
No.
All right, so next thing we're going to talk about, Tim Tebow. He was waived by the Jets a few days ago, and then went through waivers and now is officially a free agent. So that means no team claimed him or want him right now.
I feel bad for him.
He's not a quarterback.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to change to tight end.
Well, because you look at it too, even if he changed to tight end, would he be as productive as a tight end as a quarterback? I don't know, but I think he would be. I mean, I just think it's the media I think it's the media that really is another cause of why he's not being picked up. So, but the Jets really did wrong to him. They said he was going to be able to compete for the job, and they really did not give him that chance. I think if he would have started, though, I thought they would have done. I thought they would have had a better record because, I mean, Mark Sanchez.
Sanchez is so bad.
They have a bad
They
quarterback.
have to start Gino this year, am I right?
Well, maybe because you have David Garrard on the roster too, and coming from last year, he was going to start. Yeah, Sanchez just just said in an interview that he thinks he's going to start. I don't think that's the case. But the good thing about the Jets drafting Gino is that he's a second-round pick, so if they like to move on from Rex Ryan as head coach next year if they miss the playoffs, you don't have to be married, in a sense, to that quarterback that you picked the last year. Like, look at the Panthers taking Jimmy Clausen second round a couple years ago.
Yeah,
then they got a new coach, and then they went for Cam Newton. So you don't have it's a good pick, and I think Sanchez on his way out, but Tim Tebow, I think that would be good for him scheme-wise, that could use a backup quarterback, maybe the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
I don't know the reason why they signed Brady Quinn. I thought Tebow would have been an upgrade because he ran the read option very well in Urban Meyer's offense at Florida. And also maybe the Washington Redskins, but they got Kirk Cousins, so that's another thing. I saw that on NFL.com. That's the only reason why I brought that up, is maybe he could come there, but I really like Kirk Cousins' production, but it's just a tough situation for where Tebow's going to go.
Well, Brady Quinn, I believe, is the backup in Seattle right now.
Yeah, but he just doesn't fit. I mean, what they're trying to do, he just doesn't fit at all. It was just a bad pickup to me by the Seahawks, and I think someone like Tebow would have been a better pick, or anybody. So it's interesting to see, but I don't think he'll be playing for the NFL come week 1. But I don't know, down the road, there's always injuries in the NFL, so you just never know.
I mean, like, Seattle, like, say the Seahawks go and get him as their number 2, and Russell Wilson gets hurt, would you really want Tim Tebow to come in and run your offense?
I think he's capable of it based on Russell Wilson attempted the amount of the fewest passes in the league. They're really run heavy on Marshawn Lynch, but it is going to be different this year since they got Percy Harvin. But if, say, Russell Wilson, who is a smaller guy that is higher risk of injuries when making contact, as long as he's not Michael Vick and he slides, I think it would be. I don't think it would be the worst situation if he could come in if they're in a good winning situation. I mean, don't think back. I mean, he just 2 years back won a playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I mean, it was a bit of luck during that whole magical run, but he beat some good teams and some good defenses on that run, and I think he could do that in Seattle. But I mean, I don't think it's likely to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why they came in and got Brady Quinn. So I don't think they're going to move forward from that already without giving the guy a chance. Yeah. Knock on wood that Russell Wilson doesn't get hurt, because I mean I don't think that's likely to happen either, because he's a smart kid and he knows, even though I'm calling him a kid, but he knows what to do in situations. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a issue anyway, playing time wise. I think he'll get just as much playing time as he would in New York, if not less.
Well, Tim Tebow was not offered a contract by any NFL team, but he was offered a contract by the Omaha Beef in the Nebraska football. In the Nebraska Football League. They offered Tim Tebow $75 a game if he wants it. The Nebraska Football League.
So a state... Yes. We talked about this earlier. That's like New York having a team.
Yes. Yeah. No.
I don't even think CFL team's looking for him. I mean, I just want to go see him go somewhere else. Like, if he can go to the CFL and produce, it might be able to get him back into the league. I mean, maybe not, but I just want to see the guy throw the football and make plays, because you did not see him at all. I mean, I wanted to see him start at least one game last year, because I thought he would have been able... I mean, don't forget, the Jets were only a game out of the playoffs. 2 weeks left in the season. If they beat that Titans on Monday night, they're almost in the playoffs. So
didn't they get wrecked by them on Monday night?
Yeah, they got... I mean, when the game before, when Greg McElroy saved the day, winning 7-6 against the Cardinals, scoring that touchdown, they were still in the playoff race. So I think if Tebow would have started, I mean, you never know, but... He's a media crazy guy, and he didn't really. I mean, everyone says he's a nice person in the locker room, and he's not a locker room issue. So, I think he should get a chance again. But like you said, he just can't throw in the pocket. I mean, yeah, he has had stints of throwing the football, but I mean, Tebow's interesting. I could talk about this for all day because I mean, there's so many things you could talk about Tebow, but it's just crazy how it's going to turn out, and I really want to see if he can get back into the NFL.
I'm not expecting Tebow to go to the Omaha Beef in the Nebraska.
I don't think he's on that level.
From the NFL
I think he's pretty much better than everybody in that league.
Yeah, even though he's Tim Tebow in his arm.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought maybe in the beginning, maybe he goes to Chip Kelly's offense of the Eagles when they had nobody but Vic and Foles. I love Dennis Dixon, and I really like Matt Barkley. I'm not going to say anything about that yet, scheme-wise, but there's just really, I can't name a team right now that he can go to and actually maybe start besides a team like the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, they could, or maybe, I mean,
well, the
there's
Jaguars,
really no one
there
else.
was talk during this year, towards the end of the season, that he was going to end up on the Jags.
They really should have considered that. I mean, it would help the box office. It would sell tickets, as everyone loves him down in Florida. Obviously, he's a legend down there in college football. And I mean, I think he's an upgrade over Gabbert. That's just my opinion. With that, I mean, he made that Denver Broncos offense the #1 running attack. So I think he could really help out Maurice Jones-Drew. But obviously, Caldwell doesn't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, but they just needed someone to make their offense more explosive, because they don't really have a high passing offense, especially without the first 4 games. I mean, Gabbert's no guy you don't want to take out. I mean, they put Henny in for him last year, so.
Who produced in a couple games. I mean, it's all about playmaking, and I don't think the Jaguars should be too picky on what they want at the quarterback position, whether he throws it or not, or whatever he does to get the job done. They have a defense intact that they might be able to do. Tebow might be able to come in and steal a couple games, but even with Tebow, they're still only a 3 to 4 win team.
Yeah.
I don't see Tebow. I mean, Tebow had one of the best defenses in the league with the Broncos, with Von Miller and Dumerville and Champ Bailey, and even Brian Dawkins said that was his last year, so. I mean, it just doesn't work out in Jacksonville, I don't think, and obviously their GM already said that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, all right, so now let's move on to a different topic regarding fantasy football and the draft. Last day we were talking about that will make the biggest fantasy impact next year. Louis, why don't you start us off with, say, quarterback?
All right, quarterback to me, I think the #1 guy is going to be E.J. Manuel. I don't really like Geno Smith isn't as mobile as everybody. He didn't really run the read option in West Virginia. It's not really what he does. He's a pocket passer, but I think there's going to be a lot of read option in the Bills with their electric running game with C.J. Spiller. I mean, Manuel's a mobile guy. It really reminds me of Cam Newton, and with the receivers that they put him around him, and he's got a good offensive line, I really think he can produce. I don't think he's a starting fantasy viable person. I mean, unless he turns on like Cam did in his rookie year. All 3 of the rookies last year. I think he would be a solid backup if he's solidified as a starter and is producing somewhat. I wouldn't draft him, and I wouldn't pick him up until I've seen some production out of him.
I don't like any of the quarterbacks this year for fantasy, but probably my guy now, E.J. Manuel. For all the reasons you said, I don't like Geno because he might not even start.
I mean, Barkley, if he would come into the play, I think would be set up the most with all the weapons he has.
Well,
but I don't think he's going to be starting.
#2 job.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be on the roster. I do think he'll get some playing time during the season, but I don't think he's viable for fantasy. But if he was the starter, I think with the weapons he has, it would be a good situation too. But I mean, there's just the rookies. This just isn't the year for quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just not. I mean, there's just no playmaker. There's no difference makers like they had last year in RG3 and Andrew Luck and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, there are a good amount of running backs though.
Oh yeah, there are.
One person I'm not going to like is Eddie Lacy. I don't really like Eddie Lacy this year for fantasy, just because of Jonathan Franklin, who also the Packers drafted. Franklin's the more explosive runner.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a 1-2 punch there. I think Eddie Lacy's more of the power back. Jonathan Franklin's more do-it-all. But, I mean, they say Eddie Lacy can catch in the backfield, but so can Franklin. I think he can do it. I think Franklin can do it. I mean, I just think Lacy's physical attributes is just as good.
Yeah.
But he has injury problems. He has that lagging knee injury that could go into the season, kind of like Trent Richardson had last year, but I think he'll be okay. But it's a 1-2 punch that I'm not liking. The one guy I'm really liking is Giovanni Bernard. Because... And this I don't like this for Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, and I'm a big fan of him. I think this is going to take away the carries but I think he's the more speed back that can, this is going to set up screens, and I think he's going to be an impact player, and I think he's really going to take most of the reps for the Bengals this year. And also, Le'Veon Bell, Michigan State running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think it's going to make a difference too.
Well, first I want to say go back to Eddie Lacy. Like you think, well, Franklin gets those like third down carries, and he's the more open runner, speed guy. You'd think Lacy would get the goal line carries, but no, John Kuhn likes to take those. I mean, Kuhn, if you watch the Packers game, Kuhn takes those on the goal line, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they throw there.
Yeah, because, I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers and you have 3 studs at receiver in James Jones, Nelson, and Cobb, so he isn't guaranteed to get those touchdowns like Green Ellis was in New England or Trent Richardson was last year in Cleveland. I just don't think he's going to come in. I just think the rookies this year, I really am going to stay away from, except for in the later rounds. I'll take Eddie Lacy as a bench spot that could end up maybe rotating into my starting lineup because I like consistency at running backs. Doesn't have to be stellar, but I just don't think with the drafting of Jonathan Franklin, I really think does a lot. I mean, maybe if you're telling me Franklin wasn't there, I might think otherwise, but I think Franklin's too good of a player to have Lacy taking all those snaps. And also, don't forget, there's a guy named Dwan Harris who really produced in the receiving game last year for the Packers, too, who's going to be battling for some playing time as well.
Well, the Packers are a pass-first offense.
Yeah.
So that already is going to take away some. That's going to bite away at your carries. And now Franklin is also, so...
Yeah, it's just not a good situation.
Lacy's not even healthy right now, so...
Yeah, there's so many things that are going up against him with the injuries, the playing, the scheme. I just doesn't think it's for fantasy because I think he will be a productive player in the Green Bay offense, but for fantasy, I don't think he's relevant this year.
So what round would you take him in?
I mean, with us, it's different because we have trades in our draft.
And
but in a normal draft, I would probably say
it's a standard 10 teams.
Probably like round. I mean, I would give him consideration maybe 10, 11. 10, 11, maybe 12. I don't know. But I think if you're taking him, you're handcuffing with Franklin. That's my only term. If I'm taking Lacy, I'm taking Franklin. Because, I mean, that's kind of what I would be doing with Bernard, too. I'd be handcuffing him with Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, or vice versa, depending on who gets more playing time.
Depends how many, who your running backs are at that point. Because I know I'd like to get at least... I like 5 or 6 running backs on the roster.
Yeah.
So I'd be fine with Lacy as my 5th or 6th.
I think. I mean, you could think too, though. Maybe. I mean, you could switch it. I mean, Eddie Lacy is the bigger name, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jonathan Franklin ends up having the more productive year because I just think he fits the scheme better, and I would honestly consider Jonathan Franklin over Eddie Lacy at this point.
Well, we'll see as trading period passes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it really is with the rookies this year. Fantasy-wise, it's just it's a tough situation for quarterbacks and running backs.
Yes, we want back to Giovanni Bernard, who, in my opinion, might be the best fantasy running back rookie this year. But also, there's also Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis there, who's also in.
Which I really like. I mean, he broke over 1,000 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. But I think this year, if you see him go back to his New England role where he's not getting as many carries, I think you might see his touchdowns go up, but you see his carries and yards go down because I think Bernard's in a do-it-all back. And I really think it's going to be tough for Green Ellis to get some playing time if Bernard's really producing.
Yeah, I like him, but also like you said with the handcuff earlier, I mean that would help too.
Handcuffing would be smart if you're taking one of these veteran guys that are already on these teams. Not for the Packers, obviously, because they don't really have a veteran running back. For, like, the Bengals, if you're taking Bernard or Green Ellis, I think you are handcuffing him. But for a guy like Le'Veon Bell, who's coming into a team with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he honestly might start from week 1. I mean, he's likely to. I mean, there's not that many great guys there.
Mendenhall's now in Arizona.
Yeah, and Dwyer, I mean, he was productive at times. He had stints of good, as well as Isaac Redmond, but I don't think either one are really going to be as complete. I think Le'Veon Bell's going to make an impact for the Steelers this year. In fantasy, I think he's my second-ranked rookie running back, and I would consider taking him probably higher than most, and I would honestly give it a higher consideration, maybe even take him over Bernard because he doesn't have a guy like Green Ellis there to take over the production.
Well, another interesting guy in Denver, Monty Ball from Wisconsin. If Willis McGahee gets cut, which is
it's likely,
it's very likely. Then there's really not much competition there.
And they might buy out Noshawn Moreno's contract, who was really productive, though, in the end. I had him last year, averaging over 11 points a game. I think they're going to let him go, too, and then have Ronnie Hillman be that relief guy for... I mean, if this all plays out the way... And I'm quoting a lot of the podcast because I've been listening in on fantasy. Yeah. If this all pans out the way that it should, I really think that he can really be one of the top guys.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, if McGahee's gone, I'd like him up there.
My only take on it is he's really taken in college, he was the workhorse of that Wisconsin offense. So he has some... And
he was playing with a good Wisconsin line.
I mean, he's shown that he can come in and produce. And it's kind of like the Packers where they're a passing team, they're a passing offense, but it's different in that I think Monty Ball, is a better overall, and he doesn't have much competition. If it all pans out the way it should, I think he's going to be very productive.
Yep. All right, so to receivers now. Cordero Patterson, Tavon Austin, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Robert Woods, all those guys. Who do you like number 1? I mean, it's got to be Tavon Austin.
Yeah, he's the most versatile player that I think can get you the most points and is going to come in from week 1 and really produce because he is the Rams' already best receiver on the team. I think a guy like Cordero Patterson will eventually. I'm not really big on him in fantasy.
For Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean he can. I mean I don't think with the running game he's going to be getting much balls anyway. They got a good tight end in Kyle Rudolph and Greg Jennings there. But I don't know with the deep threat. I mean I think if Ponder can get him the ball, he might be viable as a backup receiver. Maybe later on in the draft. I wouldn't really consider drafting him. I really like DeAndre Hopkins though. I think he's going to be a productive receiver.
Too. There's really no other competition there. For
oh yeah, that second spot is his.
Yeah,
that's why they took him.
Andre Johnson, that's who other people are going to be focusing on. But I was surprised too to see Cordero Patterson fall past Hopkins.
I was surprised Keenan Allen didn't go there. I think Keenan Allen honestly will be this. I think Keenan Allen's going to be the second best receiver in fantasy because he fell in the 3rd round. But for fantasy, I don't think that matters that much because he's going into a team in the Chargers.
Who really don't
they got Floyd on one side. I mean, Denario Alexander was productive. But they can move him all around. I think he's a versatile player, and I really like Keenan Allen. Reminds me of an Anquan Bolden. I'm getting this off of Daniel Jeremiah, who kind of convinced me that listening to him that he really does resemble him.
He can
he's
go
physical.
up and get it in the end zone. So
exactly, and Phil Rivers likes those guys. And Gates has injury problems, so he still needs that red zone target.
Well, the Chargers also lost. What's the name from the Saints a couple years back?
Robert Meacham.
Yeah, Robert Meacham, who they got last year, who was supposed to go.
After losing Vincent Jackson, they just haven't been the same at receiver.
Well, Meacham, he met with the Bills on the one night.
I know.
He ate dinner. Mario Williams was there. He left. A couple hours later, he said he runs away and signs a contract with the Chargers.
Yeah, and he was a letdown too. And with that, they're going to be looking to air out the ball. They honestly, I don't know what this says about Ryan Matthews, but I don't know if you heard this or not. They called Danian Tomlinson and asked him to come back.
I know. That was
Ryan Matthews, I think that's just a slap in the face, obviously.
Well, I think
that's a slap in the face. And you know who a guy I think is going to be really productive? Danny Woodhead. He's going into, and again, I'm getting all this information. This is the time to be prepping. This is very early prep, but Danny Woodhead is a receiving guy. He's great in the red zone off of screens. And with Matthews, who just never stays healthy, and even when he's on there, he's not that productive. He had 1 game over 15 points last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to make an impact, and I think that's why the Chargers are going to be looking to air out the football, which could make Keenan Allen viable as a low-end I mean, even to me, I think a low-end flex is not that off. I really like how he's going to go into that offense and be a big part of it. But he is a bench player. I wouldn't start him in my starting lineup, of course. But
well, who does Tavon Austin have to compete with him besides Quick?
I mean, Chris Gibbons produced, and they have a good tight end in Jared Cook, who they just got from the Titans.
So.
But their run game, I mean, Daryl Richardson's, I mean, he's productive, and so is Isaiah Peed, but it's all on Sam Bradford now to get these guys the ball, and Austin can line up anywhere, and he's also kick returning and punt returning. So if you're in a PPR league, and you could get kick returning and punt returning points, he might be good.
He doesn't really remind you of anyone. He's a smaller version of Percy Harvin.
But he's small. Yeah,
he's shorter,
Harvin's bigger
and lighter. He's only 174 pounds.
Which is a concern because of his durability issues. It is a concern because he's going to be getting a lot of receptions, which means he's taking a lot of hits because he's in the slot.
Yeah.
I mean, so, yeah, 170 pounds. The durability issue is there. I think he's worth the risk, though.
Yeah, I mean, he should be pretty good. And also, another fantasy player who will be receiving the ball, Tyler Eifert. I like Eifert for fantasy next year.
I mean, a lot of the teams are moving the 2 tight end set.
Tons there.
I mean, Gresham's productive, but he wasn't very fantasy relevant. I think Eifert has a good chance coming in, but I think a guy that has a better chance is Zach Ertz. Yes, I am an Eagles fan, so but I've been looking at this guy now that I see him. It's Brent Selleck, like you've been saying. He's not really.
He's a blocker.
Yes, he's not a very impactful receiver. I mean, he's there when you need, but I mean...
He dropped a whole boatload of passes last year.
Ertz is a guy that can line up in the wide out. He's a good blocker, but he's a great receiver. Reminds some people coming out of a Jimmy Graham type guy, not saying he's going to have that type of career, but I think Chip Kelly can make this guy into a big time, and I would consider him as my backup tight end. I think tight end's very weak this year.
Yeah,
again, so, I mean, you're going to be looking for some sleepers.
Yeah, there's Jimmy Graham who's #1 now with a Gronk injury. Gronk who's still, we have to find out more about that injury, but if he'll be ready for the season or not. Then we have Aaron Hernandez, Gonzalez is back.
Witten? Did you say Witten?
No, I did not.
Witten.
So Witten. So about those 5, and then there's kind of a drop off.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Rudolph's going to be coming up there. He's going to be more productive.
Cook was pretty good.
It's almost like I don't want to be forced to have to take a tight end that early, but after Witten, there, like you said, there is a drop off, and it's not that productive. That's why if you're waiting on tight end, which I don't think you should. That's not what I advise. Well, you're gonna have to look for sleepers because there's not that much there.
Yeah, well, in our keeper league, I'm thinking 2nd round tight end, but I do have 4 2nd-round picks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of considering it. I mean, depending on I have 2 1st-round picks, I can get some running backs there. I'm excited for fantasy, but I would probably consider it 3rd or 4th round because quarterback's crazy deep this year, so I could wait till like the 5th and 6th round and still get a productive starter. Last year I picked one in the 7th. I got Eli Manning, who's productive at times but had a down year. But there's guys. I mean, I think you might have to take a tight end high because either you replace it with the quarterback, and I think you can really get you pretty much have to get one of the top 5, or else really it's gonna be a tough season for tight ends.
Last year I had Michael Finley, who was just god off.
Yeah, I mean, I had Witten, but I started off with Brent Selleck as my starter for 2 weeks. Had a 10-point game and then a 17.
Had that spleen injury at the beginning.
I didn't even know that happened when I took him, but he still panned out to be the leading receiver in tight ends. He had over 1,000 yards. Well, I mean, leading in receptions. He led the Dallas Cowboys, and he had over 1,000 yards. But the thing is, he just doesn't score that many touchdowns. Only 3 touchdowns last year. Kind of a disappointment.
He has robo security blanket.
Oh, yeah, he is, and he's going to produce just as much this year.
He's going to get 100 yards a game almost.
I'm kind of scared about the Gavin Escobar drafting, though. He's out of San Diego, starting the 3rd round. Might take away some receptions. He's very good.
That also might just be...
Everybody's moving to that. They're basing it off of what the Patriots are doing.
That also might just be that they just want to get... Well, because Witten's getting old, so...
That's true. I mean, but the 2 tight end set is going to be a concern for fantasy owners. You might want to handcuff a tight end. I mean, I don't know if that's the case.
Maybe.
But I wouldn't be surprised if people start handcuffing.
I'm not sure. Did the Falcons end up drafting him?
I mean, I couldn't tell you at this point. Maybe later on in the rounds, but
I can check.
Maybe they. I mean, they went corner both for top 2 picks. Robert Alfonso in the 2nd round, and in the 1st round was Desmond Trufant on the Washington. So they didn't really. Maybe I wouldn't have been surprised if I heard Zach Ertz's name taken at that. But they moved up, I believe, to get. Yeah, they did it. They moved up at 18 to get Desmond Trufant. So they. Maybe didn't. I mean, they still think Tony. This is Gonzalez to me last year.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have been surprised if they got a guy for the future.
It is Gonzalez's last year.
Yeah. I mean, unless. I think this is.
No, they did not get into that.
So, I mean, there you go. Gonzalez.